Exercise 26B, page 61.
On Sunday, October the 30th, 1938, thousands of listeners were shocked as radio news alerts announced the arrival of Martians on Earth. They panicked when they learned of the Martians' ferocious and seemingly unstoppable attack. Though the audience was actually hearing an adaptation of the H.G. Wells book War of the Worlds, many of them believed they were listening to a factual account. Susan Andrews reports.
Before the era of TV, people would sit for hours in front of their radios listening to music, news reports, plays and various other programs. In 1938, the most popular radio program was The Chase and Sanborn Hour, which was aired on Sunday evenings at 8 p.m. Unfortunately for dramatist Orson Welles, his show Mercury Theatre was aired simultaneously on another station. Wells, of course, tried to think of ways to increase his audience, hoping to take listeners away from the leading competition. For the Halloween show, Wells decided to adapt the well-known novel War of the Worlds for radio. By shortening the story and updating the setting, Wells managed to reinvigorate the book and make it more personal for the listeners. On Sunday, October the 30th, 1938, at 8 p.m., the broadcast began when an announcer came on the air and informed the audience that it was about to hear a version of the famous classic. The play itself opened with Wells coming on air and setting the scene. As he was concluding, a scripted weather report faded in, stating that it came from the Government Weather Bureau. The official-sounding report was quickly followed by a program of dance music, supposedly being broadcast live from the famous Hotel Park Plaza in New York. The music was soon interrupted by a special bulletin announcing that a professor at the Mount Jennings Observatory in Chicago, Illinois, had reported seeing explosions on Mars. The stage dance music resumed until it was interrupted again, this time by a news update in the form of an interview between a newsman, Carl Phillips, and an astronomer, Professor Richard Pearson, at the Princeton Observatory in New Jersey. The listeners who had just tuned in sat in amazement as they heard a running commentary of Martians invading New York. The script specifically attempted to make the interviews sound as realistic as possible. Though the program began with and was interrupted by announcements telling the audience that they were listening to a novel-based story, many people didn't stay tuned in long enough to hear them. At the same time, a lot of the radio listeners who had been listening to other stations turned the dial, just as they did every Sunday during the musical section of the show. On this particular evening, they were shocked to hear news warnings of Martians attacking Earth. Upon listening to the authoritative and real-sounding commentary and interviews, and not having heard the introduction to the play, many believed the Earth was actually under attack. All across the United States, listeners reacted. Thousands of people called radio stations, police, and newspapers. Many in the New England area loaded up their cars and fled their homes. In other areas, people went to churches to pray. People improvised gas masks. Miscarriages and early births were reported. Many people hysterically thought the end was near. The power of radio had fooled the listeners.